How are local organizations like yourselves and organizations that support you, like the Global Fund for Women, responding to the increasing pressure from donors? Because although you raise money, so do we raise money. We raise money from many, many individuals, like people sitting in this room, and from many institutions. There has been increasing pressure over the last 10 years, and maybe more so in the last 5, around this question of impact measures. And I see all of you smiling, and I can see my program team sitting over there, and they are all smiling. What words of wisdom would you have on dealing with this? And there are a number of questions. How do you measure your impact in women's empowerment? How are we responding to this pressure to respond to impact? This whole question of impact.
Yeah. But I think we should add something to the question.
Go ahead.
So on the one hand, they want impact, like within 2 years you should change the whole country, kind of thing. But on the other hand, they want projects. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, they don't want to give you a program. What
general operating
support. I mean, operating support, but you should do 1 or 2 years of projects and change something. So I mean, we should add that. So I mean, that's really it's a crazy situation, schizophrenic situation. I want to give one example, okay? I mean, this, the Women for Women's Human Rights was co-coordinated one huge campaign in Turkey, national women's campaign, on the reform of the Turkish civil code, because until then, until 2001, until the campaign, the husband was the head of the family, which meant that's it, okay? So, I mean, like, no matter what you take, taxes, income, where you live, the children, education of the children, the husband had to say, okay? So, so that has been changed now. There's full equality in the Turkish civil code. And then for 3 years, we had the campaign on the Turkish penal code. What does that mean? Because very shortly, we wrote publications. If anybody is interested, you can pick them up. But very shortly, in our penal code, the women's sexuality and bodies, according to the penal code, belong to the men, or to the families, or to the society. So this penal code, instead of trying to prevent, for example, sexual crimes like rape or so, it was rather trying to protect men's honor, you know, etc. So it was a really crazy situation. So it was an incredibly difficult 3 years of campaign. And at the end, and now we have really changed the law. And by the way, just one thing, I mean, as we started the penal code campaign, we had more or less a social democratic government. And then just in the midst of the campaign, we had a religious right conservative government all of a sudden. And we still went on the campaign. As we started, we had only one single ally in the parliament who's sitting in front of me, my dear friend Gaye Erbatur, who's still in the parliament. Out of 550 MPs, she was the only one who believed in us. And she managed to change the whole parliament, okay? So anyway, it was a huge success and so on. For that campaigns, for both of these campaigns, which went on for 6 years altogether, we didn't get a single penny of funding. Single. Why? Single, not a penny. There was never ever. If we had received funding, because as in Debbie's case in Uganda, we have to rely on foreign funding because the government doesn't give feminist organizations money, the corporates don't give. There is no other funding. So if we had received funding, then they would have said, oh, this is a Western agenda. Oh, that's the reason, you know, why you're working for sexual autonomy, whatever. So therefore, all of this work was done without a single penny on the, but we needed the rent, right? We need the funds, we needed the funds. it's incredible, you know, all these donors who depend on projects and etc. It wasn't their work. They couldn't even think that something like this was possible. So, or then later on they were, why? We want to give you money. No, thank you. We don't want any money. So this is a very.
Debbie, go ahead.
Yes, the way we measure impact with my constituency, it's not about the donors. It's about sitting down and deciding on agreeing what is the change. A very simple question: what is the change we want to see? And this is something we do with grassroots communities, people like you and I. We just simply identify what is that change we want to see. Mm-hmm. How are we going to get to that change we want to see? Roughly how much time will it take? So we come up with indicators that are owned by us, and all of us, participate in developing these indicators, and whether they're monitoring indicators, whatever it is. And for us, we have our homegrown way of assessing the impact of our work. So if donor A, B, or C comes in and would like to work with us, they will then have to fit into, our participatory way of assessing the impact of our work.
That's very nice to hear. And Sharon, before you jump into the impact question, and Pinar related, there's a question about, what's a relevant price tag? What can $5,000 really do? And Pinar, you told a great story earlier. And then, isn't it actually non-money donations that are even more important is a question. So maybe, I don't know if you want to add the impact question to the question of, what can, because this is a question actually the Global Fund gets asked a lot. My God, you're making these, $5,000 and $7,000 and $4,000 grants all over the world. I mean, can you really have any kind of impact?
$5,000 in Fiji could help us put in another radio station in an island, one of the second main islands of Fiji, which the newspaper will arrive when the plane gets there in the morning between 9 and 10 o'clock. That if you're a woman who lives 15 kilometers out of town, you may not actually get the newspaper, and you may not be living in a place with electricity, but you can have your own community radio station that will bring women together in their communities to talk about their issues and to raise their voices. We'll need a little bit more because of the duty and taxes, but that's what it can do. And to go back to impact, I mean, we've just gone through some programming reviews ourselves, and it was, if anything keeps me awake at night, apart from military coups, monitoring and evaluation exercises. But I actually found it, I think sometimes it's who's doing your review, which is quite important. And how prepared are they to understand the work that you do, because it's not, a standard sort of work. But the thing is to, exactly as Debbie said, it's to go back to your constituencies and to hear from them. And when you hear the stories, and that's why I actually do prefer external reviews, because then when you get the feedback yourselves, you're realizing that the endless hours of trying to figure it out, trying to do it, making it happen, is paying off, because there's a woman out there who said that by getting on the community radio station, the men started taking her seriously in her village, or that because they just kept talking and talking and talking about the drainage system, that it finally got fixed and their homes are no longer getting flooded, or that because we took the meeting into the town council chambers, yes, maybe I could become an elected official. It's those kinds of things. So I think it's, at various different levels, and you can apply all sorts of scientific approaches, but it's that anecdotal evidence, and then it's also then valuing the impact and valuing that woman's voice as well.